Welcome, welcome, Lead Like a Girl listeners. Thank you for joining me for another episode. So, this is going to be a quick one. I know that last week I recorded on Sunday and I was sharing the story about Toastmasters and how I was inspired. And I was thinking about, I want to enter a Toastmasters contest. I need to find a good story to tell to build my speech around. Well, that recording happened on Sunday, and on Monday morning, my grandmother, Hortensia Aviles, went home to be with the Lord and my grandfather. So I decided that that was going to be my story. This is a wonderful love story, and that's going to be my story. So that will be coming soon if you are a Toastmasters, and I'm sure I'll find another way to share it, but that's going to be my story. It has been a long, long week here at the Smiths. Let me just tell you that. We got a lot going on as always. As always, I say, I just want to live a normal life, but that's not going to happen, right? So I want to just give a small snippet of this story. As I mentioned, my grandmother was Hortensia Aviles, and she was born in Texas. My grandfather was also born in Texas. And for those of you that are always surprised, yes, I am half Mexican. My mother is 100% Mexican. I don't know why that just surprises the heck out of people when I say that. I always get this whatever, however it comes up, they're like, "Really? Oh, wow." Anyway, so yes, my grandmother, Hortensia Aviles, she um, transitioned on Monday early morning. And of course, it's always a sad time when someone passes away, but it's not so sad when they are 90. I always get it mixed up. 97. I think she was 97 years old. So damn near 100 years old. And she was rushed to the hospital a few days before. And she refused. She refused. She said, "No, you're not putting that IV in me. No." And they said, "We can't treat her if she doesn't want to be treated." And she's still all the way there, like all the way up until the last days. Listen, I can call my grandmother anytime. And this woman has children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, great great grandchildren. And I say, "Grandma, how are you?" "I'm good. I'm good. I'm so good, Hita." "Oh, okay. Do you know who this is? Grandma, do you know who this is?" "Yes, yes." Like, how dare you ask me, do I know who this is? What do I look crazy? I said, "Oh, okay. Well, who is it? Who is it, Grandma?" "It's Jessica." "Oh." She knew. She knew. She knew every time. So my grandmother was born in Texas, and she met my grandfather, I am told, at a lounge with her mother. So that doesn't surprise me because, back in those days, you took your kids. You could say bar, lounge, whatever you want to say, but um, this was a place that I'm sure my grandmother and her mother loved to go to because my grandmother loved music. She loved music. She loved to dance. And my grandfather performed at this lounge. So he played his guitar and he sang. And the way I imagined it is her mother was probably at the lounge one day, saw my grandfather and said, "Wow, that's a fine nice looking, handsome man. He would probably be a a a good husband for my daughter. Well, she introduced them. I believe they were around 17, maybe even 16. They married at 18 years old in Texas. Now you do the math, y'all. Okay, they were both 97 years old, and or they were 96, and my grandmother would have been 97 in July, I believe. And no one call me and text me and fact check me. I've already had that happen a few times. This is what I always tell people. Little details don't change the story, okay? So, I'm gonna say this a lot. Do not fact check me, call me, and, I was one letter off, 1 year off. Details do not change the story, y'all. So, 18 years old, they get married. Remember, my grandfather, and maybe you guys might not be caught up in the episodes, but Passover Sunday, my grandfather passed away. We went to his funeral. I was just in Chicago for his funeral the weekend of Easter Sunday. And here we are, end of the month. And my grandmother went right behind him. She was ready to go, y'all. She was ready to go. She said, I'm ready to go. She was praying. She's been praying for a while. Lord, just take me. Lord, just take me. I don't know what he was waiting on. No one knows what he was waiting on. But that's okay. He knows what he was waiting on, and he took her right when he wanted to take her. So they got married at the precious age of 18. My grandfather went to the military. He got an honorable discharge. And so I'm told, I learned today that my grandfather went to jail. Never in a million years. Talk about things that no one talks about. My grandfather was a thug. No, yeah. I don't know exactly the background, and I'm going to dig into it because I don't like unsolved mysteries. I understand that he took the rap for something that he did not do. Maybe he did not want to trick off on someone. I don't know, but my grandfather went to jail. I bring this up because my grandmother waited for my grandfather while he was in the military. And now I understand waited for him while he was in jail. My uncle really did not meet or know my grandfather until he was 4 years old. So, somewhere in between when he was born to 4 years old, my grandfather was in jail. And so I'm also told my grandmother had one, y'all, one and only. My grandfather never dated anyone else, never kissed another man, was never with another man, just my grandfather. That's it. So that I'm already impressed with because listen, y'all know that I'm not just talking about being the little hottie thotty. I'm just saying one boyfriend, one man, one kiss, man. So they were married at 18. I guess he came home when my uncle was 4 years old. They left Texas and they went to Michigan where they had my aunt. And then they went on to move to Indiana and then eventually settled in Chicago. My grandfather also had an issue with drinking. My grandfather during that time was also physically and mentally abusive to my grandmother. So I'm told that when my uncle came home from the military, there was an incident. And that day, he got in front of my grandmother and looked my grandfather in the eyes and said, "That's it. No more. You will never put your hands on my mother again." And that was it. I'm really proud. These are things that people don't like to say for whatever reason, but I'm proud of my grandfather because despite the issues and the mistakes that he made, at some point, he gave his life to the Lord and he straightened up. Those mistakes that he made, that man that he was, I had no idea because ever since I was born, like I said, when I honored my grandfather in a couple of episodes ago, he was a man that walked around with a Bible. He was a man that was an entrepreneur. And when you sat in his chair, you were going to get a sermon. So my grandfather gave his life to the Lord. And this is going back many, many, many years. My grandmother stuck by his side, always stuck by his side. And they lived many, many years happy. My grandmother worked in a factory. And ever since I was born, I remember her working nights and working in the factory. I remember her going to work when she was tired. I remember her going to work when she was sick. I just remember her always going to work. Never remember her ever calling in. And remember, I was a curious kid, so I paid attention to everything. Maybe she did, but I don't remember it. My grandmother was the super Avon lady. So I didn't get my dancing skills from my grandmother because I don't have I don't have good moves, y'all. But I got my sales skills from my grandmother because she was a phenomenal salesperson. I think all of her clients were from the factory, maybe from the church or the neighborhood. But I'm telling you that she was super duper Avon lady. And every Christmas, birthday, you were going to get Avon everything. You were going to get Avon slippers, Avon pajamas. You were going to get Avon perfume, earrings. Everything was coming from Avon. That's my grandmother was a super Avon lady. And I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that she won every Avon award that you could possibly get. So um, she was a hardworking woman. My grandmother was resilient. My grandmother was brave. My grandmother was a wonderful mother. She always took care of her children. So they eventually moved out to the suburbs. So the home that they had, I remember that always being their home. My grandmother was a wonderful cook. She cooked really, really good food. And even though she worked at night, she always provided dinner for her husband that worked during the day. So I just celebrate. I don't mourn the loss of my grandmother, but I celebrate the life of my grandmother, the long, wonderful life that she lived. I also want to just give honor and give thanks to her children that sacrificed a lot because it's one thing to care for one parent, but these guys care for two parents at a time. My grandfather eventually went to a nursing home for a week before it was like nothing to even talk about. So these people I mean, they're all in their 60s themselves. And these people sacrificed. And to you all, I say thank you for taking care of your parents, for honoring your parents to the utmost. I salute you for that. And I hope that y'all are celebrating. I hope after we get through this week of just laying her down to rest that you all are going to take a vacation. Just sit back, relax, breathe, be at peace, knowing that you made a wonderful sacrifice, that you made the last few years. I'm telling you, this is years. We're not just talking about a year or two. This is many years that they sacrificed to make sure that the later years of their parents were comfortable, that they were happy, they took care of them. And so for me, whenever there's a death in the family, and of course I find this to be this is different than someone suddenly, dying unexpectedly, right? It's just different. But overall, I think this for me just kind of helps me reflect on a new chapter, a new season. It just helps me realize that we're all getting up there. So we're going to transition, my generation, my brothers and sisters, my cousins, we're going to transition into this place that it will then be our turn to honor our parents. And I know we will, to take care of our parents, to make sure that they're comfortable in this, let's say, this last leg of this race. And it doesn't matter if your parents, if you deem them to be good parents or bad parents, none of that matters. God commanded us to honor our mother and father. And I know that we don't always do that well, but listen, if you are someone who you have some beef with your mama, some beef with your daddy, I encourage you to get that mess right. Get it right. Because whatever time they have left, you want to make sure that you honor them, that you take care of them. Do everything you can. We know, what's the saying, tomorrow's not promised. That's real. But I also encourage you to just reflect also on yourself, right? Because your kids will then enter that season of taking care of you. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. So I want to make sure that the decisions that I'm making now are going to set me up, to set them up to be able to take care of me. What do you want your grandchildren to talk about when you're gone? What stories do they have? What don't they know? That's another reason why it was so important for me to take the opportunity to tell my story. I know that my granddaughter asked me, yeah, I want to listen to all your podcast episodes. And I told her that some of them were not age appropriate for her at this time, but one day she'll be able to listen to them. And by the time she listens to them, she's going to be like me with my grandfather, like, what? He went to jail? Like, I can't see that. And I'm sure she's going to hear some things that she's like, what? My yaya did that. Or maybe maybe she'll be like, yeah, I could see that. All I know is when I check out of here, I want those stories to say, my yaya was strong. She overcame a lot and she made a difference in many lives before she left here. So I just encourage you all Think about it. You got some stuff you need to take care of with your parents. You better get it right. You better get it right today. Get it right. You only have one mama. You only got one daddy. That's it. You just get one. Make it right. So I'm just going to leave you with remember, coming soon. The trio is coming soon. So I am headed to Chicago to celebrate my wonderful, beautiful grandmother. When I return, probably have a few more episodes before the trio is coming. So help me get the word out that Lead Like a Girl 2.0 is coming, the second season. Myself, Corlin, Jamie, hopefully my DB families out there sharing this. And we're gonna talk a lot. We're gonna reminisce. We're gonna tell some stories, and we're just going to just encouraged through our storytelling. We'll eventually have some interviews and some guests. Listen, Lead Like a Girl is not just for girls. Remember, we are all better together. We need everyone. Okay. So encourage listeners, share, subscribe, give me some feedback. I really appreciate you guys coming alongside this journey with us. Make it a great week.